In this video, we'll discuss the features on Mel Gibson's face that point to a fun and charismatic nature, as well as rational and integrated thinking patterns. Enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're having a good Memorial Day weekend. As I always say, if you're new to my channel, you've never seen a face reading before, please go up here and watch the 5-minute crash course face reading video. It's very short, but if you are new and you've never seen a face reading, I think it's really important to watch that. It'll give you a good overview, give you some terminologies. And if you are enjoying my content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. That is how my channel grows. Please leave comments. Please share it with people. I appreciate it. Today we've got Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is one of my favorites. And when I think about Mel Gibson, whenever I see Mel Gibson, I think of my dad. My dad passed when I was 19 in a car accident. But my dad, there's a funny story when I used to ask my dad, who was a very man's man. He was a martial arts guy. He played rugby. He was just very tough in general. And my dad wasn't really complimentary to a lot of other men, his friends and whatnot, but he was just a very kind of tough-skinned guy. And I remember asking my dad as a kid, I was like, Dad, who do you think is a handsome man? And my dad was like, Mel Gibson. Oh, he's a handsome son of a bitch. So I always think about Mel Gibson. I think about my dad. So in any case, Mel Gibson has a lucky face for sure. And he's got some cool features that I think are interesting in regards to face reading. So let's talk about his face, what I saw, and things to consider, to look at. So first and foremost, in his heyday, Mel Gibson, yes, classically very handsome, very good-looking guy. He was in the Lethal Weapon movies, one of the few men that actually looked good with a mullet. He pulled that off really well. I mean, few men can make a mullet look handsome. Mel Gibson definitely did it. So a couple things. The things that leapt out to me about Mel Gibson, especially in his youth, was his shin. There was an intensity there. So anytime we see looks of intensity, when a person has a look of intensity, they look tough, they look scrappy, they look like they mean business, or they can drop into that serious overtone. Those are all wood energetics. So the countenance on the face can fall into fire, earth, metal, water, or wood. 5 elemental rhythms, and oftentimes a blend of those. But any kind of intensity, ferocity, that aggression, that look of aggressiveness, that's all wood energy. So he had a good amount of that. Now, he definitely has some strong eyebrows, which plays to the wood energetics, but he doesn't have an insanely powerful jaw, but his jaw is well formed, well cut. So kind of these balanced metrics, but what you see in Mel Gibson's face is that look of intensity. So, Mel Gibson has been known for his temper throughout his career in some regards. Now, he's been known for a lot of other really good things. Practical joker, really funny. And we'll talk about that as well, because he's got sparkling peach luck, quite a bit of it actually. So in any case, those wood energetics are definitely prominent on his face. If you read about Mel Gibson in his youth, I did a little digging, just reading about him, from Australia originally, and was a scrapper, had been in lots of fist fights growing up. And so that really goes hand in hand with that wood energy, those wood energetics. Martial artists, people who are prone to aggressive tendencies, people who will fight, people who have those proclivities, those are all metrics pointing to the wood element energy. Personally, myself, I enjoy wood energetics. And shout out to my buddy, Travis Fields, and colleague, who's also a face reader. And I was talking to him the other day just about this. And he said, the elements that we like in people are typically, we carry enough of that element to understand it and to handle it. I have enough wood energy that I like wood energy in people. If you're really deficient in an element, oftentimes people with strong elemental proclivities, fire, earth, metal, water, or wood, you won't necessarily like, or you'll have an aversion to. So I always kind of point to people in terms of face reading and looking at faces and understanding yourself and other people. If you have an aversion to one of the elements in terms of facial features, and you've gotten relatively well versed in face reading, and you see features or wood features that you don't like, or fire features make you uneasy, that is kind of a ding, 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 ding. That's a little bit of a mild alarm going off saying that you are likely deficient in that element. And we're all going to have greater allocations of the elements in our faces and in our personalities, but you don't want to live like that to a degree either. You should be able to handle all of the elements, because all of the elements are life-giving. So that being said, when I was looking at Mel Gibson, I started to notice too a couple of like wrinkles that showed up on his face, the forehead lines. So he's got what you would call good forehead lines. Now, we live in America here, and a lot of people, when we get wrinkles and we start to age, there is an aversion to aging. We are not a culture that ages gracefully, and we really run from it. We try to maintain our youth in appearance, and that comes with some costs. But in face reading, when wrinkles form a certain way, some wrinkles are auspicious, and they point to good metrics and good signs of aging. We're going to age, but you want to age gracefully, and hopefully we're aging pretty well. So his forehead lines are connected. Now, the thing to remember about the forehead is this represents the mental capacity, okay? The state of the mind, the intellect, how we think, how broadly we think, and it's technically a water feature, okay? The upper forehead in particular is more related to the water. When we start looking at the hairline, that's all reading the water energy. The low forehead, okay, towards the eyebrows and the brow bone, that's more wood. So if you think of it in terms of a tree, right, you've got the water up top and the root system down below. And what does water do? Water has to ascend and go to the top of trees, right? It has to climb all the way up and then it works its way down. So these lines, when they connect here, when we see those lines, according to face reading theory, this points to integration of thought. That's one. So that means that the person is able to cohesively think. They're able to form rational thoughts, oftentimes pretty good with logic. And there's a certain amount of fair play that comes with these forehead lines. It means the person thinks things through, and the mind and the lessons of the 20s, okay, the lessons, this area is represented by the 20s as well. So the lessons of the 20s, when these forehead lines are integrated, that means the 20s, which are usually about identity, what we're figuring out about ourselves and whatnot, when they connect, what that means is that the lessons of the 20s have been integrated well. And so the time of identity, figuring out who you are, those things usually are coming together pretty nicely. Now, even in his youth, and I fall into this category as well, I have connected forehead lines, but I had forehead lines even in my 20s. And so what that points to is oftentimes those years when we see those markings showing up early, and you can see some of these younger pictures. I think this one's from Mad Max right here. He already has them. And what that means is that there's some pretty challenging trials in the 20s as well. The deeper the wrinkle in the forehead or on the face anywhere, the more grooved they are and the more you can see them at rest. That means the more the emotional pattern has been carved in to the person, because the face emotes, right? When we make faces and we think about things and we contort our faces when we get upset, all of that stuff are indicative. Facial expressions are indicative of emotions. And this is why face reading says wrinkles aren't bad. You should be emoting. The human organism is designed to experience the full range of human emotion. So looks like lessons in the 20s, likely pretty sizable, maybe even difficult for him, but they're well integrated. So it means whatever he went through in his 20s likely came together pretty nicely. Now, the other thing that I noticed about his forehead when I was looking at these wrinkles was he has something called, according to the face reading theory and in Lillian's book, it's called transformation lines. So these lines that show up kind of on a diagonal, you can see in this picture here, he's got them here. And I'm trying to see if they're in his younger pictures, if he had them. I'm not really seeing too much, but you can definitely see these lines forming up on his forehead. And in the context of face reading, when you see these lines, it relates to transformation. This is how Lillian taught it. She said transformation lines. It means the person has been going through something pretty sizable and these lines show up. So I don't disagree with that fully, but as a face reader, sometimes through personal experience, observation, and just trial and error of seeing some things, my opinion about these things sometimes shift and grow. And I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. I'm going to look at the art slightly different than the people that came before me. So that being said, I think more specifically, these lines are about side sleeping. The reason I say this is because I was getting these lines from side sleeping. And when I realized that, I would wake up in the morning and I would see this wrinkle kind of forming from the pillow doing this. And I was starting to get these lines here. I thought, oh, that's a simple fix. Just kind of like tuck my forehead skin before I lay down, or kind of push my skin this way and then lay, or put the pillow, closer to my cheeks so that my forehead's not coming into contact. Those lines went away pretty quickly. I've also had a number of clients who've seen these lines in the context of face reading, and I'm like, looks like you got them on your right side. You're a right side sleeper. So I think it has to do with sleeping patterns. However, this is where Chinese medicine comes into play. When we lay on our back, the blood of the body, because we are fluid, is going to move towards the spine. We're laying on our back, so we're sending energy to the spine, which is indicative of the energy moving into the water system, because the bladder channel goes along the back. The bones regulate the water element. The kidneys and bladder regulate this system. So when we lay on our back, the blood floats to the spine. Mel Gibson has these lines on the right and left side, which means he probably alternates from side to side. The thing we want to think about is when we sleep on our right side, our liver is located on the right side of the rib cage. When we lay on the right side, the blood is pooling more into the liver. If we lay on our left side, it's pooling into the stomach. All right. So why does this matter in the context of face reading? If we're looking at the face and trying to read the body and read the person and read the personality, when we sleep, we are digesting life. We have dream time. We have lots happening, repair, rebuilding while we sleep. And so when I see these marks, specifically on one side of the face, that means the person is trying to process through their liver or they're trying to process through the stomach. So when you're sleeping on your right side, the liver processes our dreams. Literally, dream time, and also the dreams we have in life, what we're pursuing, what we're chasing, and whatnot. And it also regulates something called the Hun in Chinese medicine, which is the ethereal soul. So without getting too deep into Chinese medicine, the soul, the light of the soul, when it comes into the body, it's broken down into 5 different spectrums of light of sorts: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And each of these organ systems are going to break down a different aspect. The lungs break down the Po, which is the animal spirit, the animalistic tendencies. The liver processes the ethereal soul, called the Hun. So that being said, the stomach, okay, is on the left side. And when you lay on the left side, that means that the body is trying to process through the stomach a bit more. So if a person has digestive issues, they'll subconsciously sleep on their left side, trying to funnel energy into the stomach. Or they might have pain or discomfort along the front side of the body, like their thighs might be sore, or people might have injury to the front side of the body when they sleep on their left. There's lots of other reasons why you can sleep on your left. I'm just giving you context to say when I see these wrinkles, it's more about how the person is trying to process their life force. Left and right sides, they're leaning towards the stomach or the liver, and there's a lot of metrics that we can talk about outside of that. So those wrinkles stood out to me. Now, the other thing that Mel Gibson has quite a bit of is this sparkling peach luck. So lots of it. So sparkling peach luck is charisma. It's charm. The people that are witty, that have that twinkle in their eye. Michael J. Fox has a lot of this. Leonardo DiCaprio has a lot of this. If you haven't checked out that video, you can go up here. I just did him last week. I did a face reading on him. But people that contort their faces, people that practically joke, you will see this. That sparkling peach luck is the mischief, it's the fire, and Mel Gibson is notorious, and I mean notorious for pranking people on set. Chris Rock has talked about it. Lucy Liu in Payback with Mel Gibson, she talked about it. Mel Gibson was always the guy coming up and photobombing interviews, making weird faces. So he's definitely a very playful guy, and we can see these metrics in that look of mischief. There's a little bit of like I said with Leonardo DiCaprio, people that can kind of get into some shit. Now, last little piece here that I saw with Mel Gibson that I thought was interesting in looking at his face is that this allocation of energy, he's got a pretty even distribution, okay? So when we think, when the person is top heavy, right, they have a big forehead and they kind of come down to a narrow chin. We want to think of energy moving from the top down to the bottom. And so the reason for that is gravity moves through us this way. And so this basic thinking in Eastern philosophy is that these universal forces, things like gravity and these forces that are on us all the time, because energy moves down, we want to think of the life force passing through us. Gravity, okay, sunlight, these things are seen as a type of life force because it's something that we have to process and they give us life. Gravity helps us build muscle. Gravity anchors us to the earth. It's life-giving in some capacity. So when we see a face that's relatively symmetrical all the way down, this means how our Jing, okay, our constitutional genetic strength is going to allocate like that through life. Loosely, you want to think younger at the top, middle age in the middle, and old age at the bottom. So when we see an even distribution, that means the Jing allocation, the person's Jing is going to express pretty evenly through their life. Now, if they're top heavy, like James Dean or Nikola Tesla, that means in their younger years, they're going to have a lot of energy here. And if it comes down to a point, things can extinguish. Deals can fall through. Early death sometimes, or sickness in the middle or later life. And then if we see just the opposite, where a person is narrow at the top and really big on the bottom, big jowly jaw, cut jaw, that means the old age can actually be pretty robust, but maybe their youth was a bit more difficult. In the end, we're not defined or contained by any of these things. It's sort of like saying, yeah, you know, a cheetah sprints and a monkey swings and climbs. One isn't really better than the other. It's just a different flavor on how to live your life. So, you know, don't pigeonhole yourself if you have these features and think that, oh man, I got a narrow forehead and a big jaw. Therefore, my childhood must have sucked and I'm doomed to live out all these patterns. Don't think of it like that. It just gives you a roadmap to process and to understand and to look at your face in terms of how you're going to live and how you can express. So these are the big things that I saw with Mel Gibson. As I always say, if I was doing a personal one-to-one face reading with Mel Gibson, there would be a lot more that I'd be diving into, and there's a lot more I could say about his face, but I try to keep these digestible and small. But these are the big metrics that I saw with Mel Gibson. If you got questions, please leave them in the comment below. Thanks for your time.